a Redeemer, Jesus, God's own Son, precious Lamb of God, Messiah, Holy One.
Hi, the purpose of this video is to talk about predicting striper locations in the summertime from temperature and oxygen profiles. Now, it's known that in most large reservoirs, a lot of the fish, including the striped bass, will kind of congregate in the deeper water near the dam in the summertime. And there's a couple of competing factors that are going on here. The striper prefer cooler water where they don't have to expend as much energy to maintain body condition. The striper prefer wherever they can find the blueback herring in herring-dominated lakes, and the striper have the need to breathe, so to speak, right? There's always dissolved oxygen in the water, but in the summertime, especially in places in Lake Lanier, different chemistry effects can reduce the amount of dissolved oxygen in certain parts of the water column, so the striper are sensitive to that. So it's known that the striper are easier to catch at the southern end of Lake Lanier in the summertime, and this fishing focus often focuses on the area immediately adjacent to the dam for a period of time, and then at some point in the late summer or early fall, the striper begin to disperse back throughout the lake. And so the purpose of this video is to discuss how to predict that, how to know where the fish are before the fishing reports come out, or before you go out there and looking around on your sonar or fishing, or however you like to find them. So state of Georgia has provided us with this nice map, and this is a map of Lake Lanier for illustration purposes. And just to orient you a little bit, this is Brown Bridge up here. This is Flowery Branch Bay, 6 Mile Creek, Young Deer Creek, Baldridge Creek, the dam, and there are some measuring stations, and the ones that we'll be focusing on today are the measuring station at Flowery Branch Bay, the measuring station at the mouth of 6 Mile Creek right here, and then the measuring station down by the dam. Because every couple of weeks, the scientists with the state, they go out and they measure temperature profiles. In other words, temperature is a function of depth at these different points on the lake. And they also measure dissolved oxygen profiles, or dissolved oxygen as a function of depth at these locations. So let's look at one of the graphs, and these come out every couple of weeks, so you want to pick one that's recent. So it's mid-August now, so the last available graph was on August 11th. So let's go ahead, and our procedure is going to be, we want to make a chart, and let me show you the blank table that I'm going to be filling out here. So we want to know the thermocline sort of provides a ceiling for where the striped bass like to be. Now, it's not a hard ceiling, it's a soft ceiling, so it's not like it's impossible to find striped bass in the warmer, shallower water, but they do, striped bass do prefer, and the bluebacks that they're chasing do prefer to be below the thermocline. So we're going to treat the thermocline as a kind of ceiling, and the dissolved oxygen is kind of a floor, because below a certain water level, the dissolved oxygen is falling below 5 parts per million. So we're going to call 5 parts per million the floor, and so we're going to make notes for where the ceiling is and where the floor is at these different sampling locations at the mouth of Flowery Branch Bay, the mouth of 6 Mile Creek, and down by the dam. And by charting where the ceiling and floor is, we can see that there are times when the striped bass kind of get squeezed, where the ceiling's coming down on them from above and the floor's coming up on them from below. So there's places where they would prefer to be, where they have more living space, so to speak, and where the blueback herring that they chase prefer to be, because the bluebacks have more living space. Okay, so to get the information that we want from the graph, it's handy to have a straight edge, because when you're just eyeballing these things, your eyes can be a little unreliable, and it's better to follow it down more accurately, right? So the red curve is the temperature profile, and its temperature numbers are on the left-hand axis. So what we want to know for the ceiling is we want to know the thermocline, and I'm going to denote the thermocline as the last point at the warmer temperature before the water starts to get colder. So to determine the depth of the thermocline, I just put the straight edge, line it up with the last temperature point, and then I come down here to the x-axis, and you know, a little interpolation is needed because the tick marks are at 20, 23 and a half, and then well, hang on, 20, 23, and 26. So a little interpolation is necessary, even using the straight edge with all due care. And so I'm going to write down that it looks like the thermocline at the mouth of Flowery Branch Bay on this date is 25 feet deep. And then for the dissolved oxygen, this is the line 5 dissolved oxygen, and it's in the blue there. So we want to see where the blue curve crosses the line of 5 parts per million. So we line up the straight edge, drop down to the x-axis, and we can interpolate a little there that the floor at the mouth of Flowery Branch Bay is 31 feet deep, because that's where the dissolved oxygen level drops below 5 parts per million. Okay, so then we can repeat the procedure with the data that's been provided at the mouth of 6 Mile Creek from the same date. So to find the thermocline, we line up our straight edge at the last point before the temperature starts to drop off, and we write down in our notebook that that's 21 feet. And then we find the point where the blue curve, the dissolved oxygen, drops below 5 parts per million. Use our straight edge to drop down, and we determine that that's very close to 29 feet deep. Okay, so we just repeat the process once again at the sampling station by the dam, and for some reason the people who are making these measurements call this the forebay location, but we've looked on the map, this is the area that's closest to the dam. So we can move the straight edge over to determine the depth of the thermocline at that location, and drop down. The thermocline's at about 22 feet, and then we want to see where the dissolved oxygen, or the blue curve, dropped below 5 parts per million. And so put our straight edge in place, and we determine that that's approximately 31 feet deep. So after we've got the ceiling and the floor at those 3 locations, we can make a chart and talk about it. Alright, so this is the summary table for our results, so that we can see that in the mouth of Flowery Branch Bay, and this is the area that I like to fish a lot. This is the area up there by Three Sisters Island, and a couple weeks ago the fishing was really hot up there. You could catch a lot of stripers in a short period of time. But what we see here by mid-August, the bluebacks and the stripers are getting squeezed a little bit. The thermoclines drop down to 25 feet, and the dissolved oxygen floor has risen up to 31 feet. So there's only a 6-foot window where the bluebacks and the stripers are feeling most comfortable up by Flowery Branch Bay. At the mouth of 6 Mile Creek, the thermocline is about 21 feet deep. The dissolved oxygen floor is about 29 feet deep. So there's approximately an 8-foot window in depth where the bluebacks and the striper are feeling most comfortable. And down by the dam, the thermocline is 22 feet deep. The floor from dissolved oxygen is about 31 feet deep. So there's about a 9-foot window where the bluebacks and the striper are feeling most comfortable. So while it's not impossible to run into some striper and bluebacks up here in Flowery Branch Bay, there's a little more of a squeeze put on the fish up there. So I'm going to say that for the next couple of weeks, fishing by the dam is probably going to be optimal and the best bet, because there's this still a pretty wide region, 9 feet deep, or between 22 and 31 feet deep, where the bluebacks and the striped bass are feeling most comfortable. So the procedure that I outlined isn't just useful for knowing what's happening right now, but you can see as the usual late summer, early fall effects start to happen. We get a couple cold fronts come through, water temperatures start to drop. Maybe we get a real stiff northeast wind or north wind, 15 to 20 miles an hour for a good 10 hours out there. That'll cool the water, that'll lead to lots of mixing, that'll add a lot of oxygen to the water and also mix the oxygen heavy upper layers with some of the oxygen depleted lower layers. And the consequence of that will be that at these stations like Flowery Branch Bay and further north in the lake, what's going to happen is the ceiling gets higher, closer and closer to the surface, and the floor gets lower. And as that happens, the striped bass and the bluebacks are more comfortable moving to the more northern parts of the lake. And then that's where they won't be all concentrated at the dam anymore.
When I stand in glory, I will see his face, and there I'll serve my King forever in that holy place. Thank you, oh my Father, for giving us your Son and leaving your Spirit till the work on